Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast. A day early this week with just schedules and everything. It worked out a little bit better to go tonight. We are at halftime of the Cyclone game. They are ahead at half, playing decent. Are you watching it, Trev?
No, I'm not. I was finishing up some work stuff, but I do see they're up by 10, though.
Yeah, that's about their biggest lead. They played okay. We'll get to them a little bit later. I've got on a side screen here when it gets back. It just went to halftime, so we got a few minutes here before it does start. But we'll get a lot of basketball here, but we do want to start with hockey. And I know it's been a few days, but and I know you sent kind of the rundown that you usually do, and it's good. The biggest thing with the hockey is the men and women won. They beat the rivals in Canada, both of them in overtime, and just great hockey games. I'm not a huge hockey guy. Trev, I don't think you are either. I can't tell you all the ins and outs of hockey, but I got up early Sunday morning to watch the men's game. I watched a lot of the women's game. I'll say I didn't watch it all, but I watched a lot of it. Men's game, I watched every minute of it, and it seemed to be just a great hockey game. Very good hockey, nothing outlandish, great goal keeping by both teams, both goalkeepers, and Hellebuck, just a couple unbelievable saves to keep the U.S. in it, and then the U.S. was able to get one past Bennington in overtime. But it is big for hockey. It's big for U.S. hockey. It's big for the future. And I watched the news tonight on Channel 13 here, and they were talking about the lack of ice here in Iowa and there's trying to get a few more rinks to increase hockey participation in Iowa. And like they were saying, I actually watched the 1980 thing the other day, and they talked about almost all those players were from Minnesota and like Massachusetts, the Northeast. And on this hockey team, there's three guys from St. Louis. Hughes is from Orlando. They're just all over, and the spread of hockey is getting more and more. And this is another situation where a 10-year-old might want to pick up hockey now and pick up a stick, but you got to have ice and you got to have the facilities for it.
Yeah, it's a great point. It was one hell of a hockey match there on Sunday morning. 26 million viewers, a ton of people tuned in, myself included, didn't miss a minute of it, just like you and so many others. Connor had 41 out of 42 saves. He was by far the player of the game because Canada controlled the flow of the game throughout most of it until overtime. I mean, they were the better team until overtime came. And without Connor, I mean, we're not even in that, we don't even go to overtime without him. So he was by far the MVP of that match. And yeah, you're right. With 26 million viewers, 46 years since the Miracle on Ice, this is probably going to inspire a bunch of young people to start playing hockey, women included, because as you mentioned in the beginning, they beat Canada as well, 2-1, I believe it was overtime. I think it was the same score in overtime and everything. So yeah, there's going to be a bunch of young kids, men and women, that start playing hockey. And yeah, as far as Iowa goes, I mean, I know down south where we're from, hockey was really non-existent other than just rollerblades in gym class. But up north, closer to Minnesota and Wisconsin, the Dakotas and all that, I'm sure there's a lot more hockey up that way.
Well, you just, as an example, this year, there's been some cold days, but, you have less than a month of being able to go outside like on a pond and skate. That's just the reality of it. It's not safe enough ice for any more than 1 month a year. And it's not a month straight. It's might be a couple weeks here, and then it gets warm and you can't have it. And then you might be able to get another week later or 2 weeks, but no more than 4 weeks total here in southern Iowa and Oskaloosa area. And that's just the reality of it. You get northern Iowa, you get to like Clear Lake and Spirit Lake and those counties up right by Minnesota, you get a lot more. Like, I think they might still be ice fishing up there. I don't know for sure. It kind of got cooler again I know it was getting really close to not being able to, but we've got open water here, and it's still, 4 more days left of February, and there's not any ice. Even it's not even unsafe ice. It's just there's no ice.
Yeah, it makes it pretty tough for those ice fishermen, or like we talk about kids that watch this hockey match and they want to go out and start practicing hockey. I know hockey is a very expensive sport
Yep.
as well because of all the equipment. I had a couple cousins that played hockey growing up in Colorado and then in Canada, so it's very expensive. I'm sure it's even more expensive nowadays, just like everything, because the cost of equipment. As golfers, we know that they're coming out with new clubs every 6 months. Who knows if the technology really gets better in a 6 month period, or if they're just upping their sails and painting it a different color type of stuff. I'm sure the same thing is going on with hockey and some other sports, but no, it was a fun Sunday morning, and for 26 million viewers for that early in the morning is pretty impressive. That goes to show you that tons of people across the country were interested in that hockey match.
Yeah, it's fun to see when everybody gets behind one common team what can happen. It was 26 million at the top, 18 million like consistent throughout, the highest rated sports, game or match, whatever you want to call it, before 9 a.m. ever. Second highest hockey game ever on NBC. That's Olympics or non-Olympics. And then the other thing, and this is just how much did you watch the Olympics just in general? I don't watch it like every night, like all night. One, I'm just not home enough. But like when I'm home, I watch it just because I can watch everything else later, and that's a good and bad thing. It's not like when we grew up, Trevor, where if you missed Friends or Cheers on Thursday night or Tuesday night, you couldn't watch it. If there's a show that's on that you really want to watch, you can watch it whenever you want, essentially. And the Olympics was 2 weeks. It's not live. Most of the time I kind of knew it was already going on because it came out at like noon or 1 o'clock when it actually happened. But watching people be the best in the world at it, at anything, doesn't matter what it is just fascinating to me. I can't do any of that stuff, not even close. It'd just be silly out there. And then the other thing, and I know there's others, but bobsled is an example. They go down the track 4 times at roughly 55 seconds each time. And the difference between gold and silver, or maybe it was bronze and it was the bronze medal and not a medal, was 2/100ths of a second. That's how close they are to getting a medal and not medal. That's insane, and how close it all is. And like when you watch those people go down the skiing, they're going 80 mile an hour on skis. They go down 2 times, and you see the green and the red, and you think, well, he's way ahead or way. First to last is still only like a second and a half. It's amazing how close they all really are. And maybe I look into that too much, but it's just amazing how close and just the little differences go from first to non-medal or whatever it is. But that's the stuff that I love to watch in the competing. And the U.S. had a great Winter Olympics. Some of it has to do with Russia wasn't there. I understand that, but hopefully the U.S. can build on this. It essentially is like almost the same region. It's just on the across the border in France next year. So it's really like the same area. And then obviously a big 2028 with it being in LA.
No, you don't look into it too much at all. I think that's what a lot of people find fascinating is all these hundreds of tenths of a second that these medals come down to, or not medaling, or these inches or feet in these certain events. It's amazing. And a lot of these athletes, this is the only time that we ever watch them.
Yeah.
These are sports that we don't watch year round. We watch it just when the Olympics come on. And yeah, I watched a decent amount. I would like to have watched more, but I was probably like a lot of people, whether I was at home or in a hotel room, I just always kind of had it on the TV. Sometimes I'd be watching, sometimes I wouldn't. But I definitely wish I would have watched a little bit more. I know I didn't watch as much as the last Summer Olympics, but I did watch a decent amount. And like you said, it's just these athletes, you think someone takes the lead in something, and then the very next person takes the lead. And like bobsledding, for example, I mean, how crazy that is and dangerous it is. And some of these other sports, it doesn't even make sense how they practice, for some of these, or how you even getting involved in it. I don't even know how you go about some of these, but it is amazing to watch the best of the best at the top of their game.
Well, like, honestly, like bobsled, luge, skeleton, those three events, how do you realize you're good at that? You just try it, I guess. You're a good athlete, and it's something that someone says, hey, let's try this. I have no idea. Curling, I know there's curling. I think there's a curling club in Des Moines, actually. I mean, so I think that does happen. Ice skating and speed skating, you kind of understand. Maybe they weren't the best hockey players, so they tried that, or it's something you kind of just end up being good at, I guess. But, yeah, it's just – like Lolo Jones went from being a track star to a bobsledder. And I think that has something to do with it. She's fast, she's strong, she's big. And I think a lot of it, for bobsled, it's you look at the build on the guys, especially. They're big, strong. They look like football players. And I think it's the power and speed to get that sled going super fast. But, yeah, you watch and then some of the sports are just crazy. The half pipe snowboard and skis, or they're doing flips, and it's like, again, how do you practice that stuff? I guess, I mean, you're kind of just a gymnast on skis, I guess.
Yeah, you got to be a little bit of a daredevil, because if you wreck on most of the stuff that we watch, I mean, you can get seriously injured. Obviously, we saw some of that during the Olympics as well. So, yeah, I mean, some of this I think is just athletes that maybe started on one sport, and for whatever reason they couldn't excel, or maybe there was an injury, and they know someone who knows someone, come try this sport out, come try that. Why don't you come watch? Or maybe they see something on TV and they want to give it a try, and they get involved, because it's not like football or basketball or baseball where you just play it in school just because all your friends do. There's not bobsled teams.
Not in the U.S.
or some of these others that you can do. So it would be interesting to hear a lot of the stories of how some of these athletes got to their certain sports, how it came to be.
And I was watching, I think it was Mary Carrillo went to Norway, and obviously they had the most medals. And what they do, and they don't do any competitions till like 12 years old of the kids, and they're talking about that. But the other thing is, like, one day a week, and I don't know where this was. I don't know if this is everywhere, but they had a ski jump facility that like 4-year-olds were doing, 5-year-olds were doing. It was free, and they were just doing it. Like everybody was. Anybody could do it. And that is kind of like us going down to the park and playing catch with our buddy, or going to shooting basketball. And I understand Norway's way farther north than here, and you have to do stuff in the winter, or else you're not going to enjoy your time. Just because they have so much winter. That's just the reality. And Canada's the same way. It's, you don't have the summers. And then the other thing, I was just like, we're in Iowa. We're not in the South, I would say. We're obviously Midwest, but we're farther north than a lot of U.S. And just like we were talking earlier, there's no ice here. We've had no snow all year here. Like, we can't practice this stuff. You have to go north. You have to go to the mountains. And that's why some of these sports and the U.S. in general hasn't been great, and it's not as popular in the U.S. just because so much of the U.S., you can't practice that stuff unless you intently do it.
Yeah, unless you like an ice rink to go to, and ice rinks are obviously probably not cheap, and you have to maintain all that type of stuff. I mean, does the mall in Iowa City or Coralville still have the ice rink?
Yes, I believe it does. There's a new Rec Plex out in West Des Moines that have it. Buccaneer Arena has ice, and I think there's one other place in Des Moines that does. And and I don't know if they let Casey's Center, when the ice is up, if they're not using it, if they let people go practice in there or anything on any, the Wild play on Thursday and Saturday. If Friday they can use, obviously the Wild have practice or whatever, but if they let anybody else in there to use it or not, I have no idea. I doubt it.
I'll tell you one thing. I've been ice skating twice in my life, and it killed my ankles both times. So I have no intentions of ever trying it again. I don't know if you've ever been.
I have done it one time, and I'm a big scaredy cat. And yeah, I didn't get too far from the boards. And I really have no intention on trying it again.
Yeah, that's it was fun to try, but it killed my ankles. So no, the Olympics was great. Great way to end it, obviously, with USA beating Canada. Canada's a little bit bitter about it. Hearing some of their folks talk about it, which makes it a little bit.
Yeah.
It makes it even more fun.
Well, yeah, and Canada has won several gold medals. They won, was it 2 years ago? That was the Four Nations, or last year, whatever that was. They won in overtime, I believe. So they expected to win this game, and they should. I mean, I think Canada has the better team, and they probably even played the better game. But when you have the best goaltender, and he's the best goaltender in the NHL too, this isn't just he had a great game. He's really good. He's the best, probably the best goaltender in the world right now. And that's what you get. And if you have the great goaltender, and if you can just get one or two by, then it will work.
Yeah, and I don't think Canada's won a Stanley Cup since '93 or so. It's been a long time. So that's
No.
Obviously there's more teams down in the States, so that there's a numbers game there. But it's been a long time since Canada's won a Stanley Cup. So that's eating at them too a little bit. And then for us to get them in both men's and women's, it's just icing on top.
Oh, absolutely. Anything else you want to talk about with the Olympics, Trev?
No, I think that's good. We can move on to some basketball or NFL, whatever direction you want to go.
Let's go basketball first. Iowa State 45-36, 17 and a half to go out at Utah. This is a big – you just got to win. Iowa State is in a position now. They were the fourth number one seed on Saturday, according to the NCAA tournament committee, which is a big deal. Being a one seed is a huge deal. It's a huge advantage. They were number 6 last week in the poll, beat Houston, lost to BYU on Saturday night in, I wouldn't say it was like a complete dud of a game, but just they didn't play their best. But AJ DeBansa is one of the best players in the country, and it showed. He almost had a triple-double and did whatever he wanted, and he was the best player on the floor. But that isn't a horrible loss. They're ranked in the top 25. It was at BYU. They've got one of the best players. So they actually moved up from number 6 to number 4 in the AP poll this week, even with the loss. So craziness in basketball, and that's because 6 other teams lost. Number 1 lost. Houston actually has lost 3 in a row. Kansas lost to Cincinnati. Arizona went in and beat Houston. Duke beat Michigan. I mean, it was kind of chaos, the people in front. But what I want to talk about is, and it ended up not hurting them because of what else happened, but Iowa State gets in positions where they're the number 1 seed. All these teams lost. You're playing late Saturday night. You know all this. You have the opportunity to be number 2 or number 3, I think, if you win that game. You're not just 4, and you just can't do it. And Iowa State's done this before a few times, and I want to pose this question to you, Trev. Iowa State gets in a position. They get to number 2 in the country. They've never been ranked number 1 in their history. They've been number 2 several times, and they've been number 2. They were number 2 last year. They've been number 2 this year, and maybe even like 3 years ago. I can't remember. There was another time relatively recently that they were number 2 as well. And once they get there, it's like they lose their next game, or maybe they win a couple, but then the number 1 team loses on Tuesday. And so and you already won on Monday, so you're going to be number 1 in the country if you win on Saturday and they go lose. It's just, that's what's frustrating to me, is they get all this stuff handed to them, or the other teams in front of them start losing, and then they can't take advantage of the situation that's given to them. Do you see that same thing, or am I looking, again, as I said earlier, am I looking too much into that?
No, I think partially you're right on that. It's also really tough to get to number one, and
Oh yeah,
Iowa State's not they're not a Duke or North Carolina or anything. So obviously it's going to be more rare than those type of schools that are typically at the number one spot. I mean, we talked about it last week. You know, those two big wins that they had at home, and then all of a sudden you got two on the road. You wondered if they might come out a little sluggish. And I didn't watch the game. I'll let you speak more on that, but I wasn't so surprised they lost. BYU, like you said, is a pretty good team, one of the best players in the country. Really tonight, though, this is the one they got to take care of. You got a 10-17 Utah team that you need to win this one. We'll talk about Iowa and Iowa women here coming up with some games that they need to win, but this is a must win to kind of stay on that cut line of either being a 1 seed or dropping back down to a 2, which I think is Iowa State. I would assume they're the last number 1 seed as of right now.
Yeah, they were the fourth number one. I think things would really have to go haywire to get outside of the top 2 seeds. I mean, I really think so. As long as, the next Monday, so a week from yesterday, they play at Arizona. If you could go there and win, I think you might lock up a number 1 seed. But that isn't, if you win tonight, you can't lose the other 2 because they're at home. You can't lose to Texas Tech on Saturday, and then you finish the season against Arizona State, which is, again, a game you need to win. It's at home. So you win tonight, you win your 2 other home games, and then you would beat Arizona. I think essentially you would have almost a 1 seed locked in, unless you truly get upset in the Big 12. Even if you would lose to an Arizona or a Kansas or a Houston, you would have beat all those teams as well. And that's what's crazy is other teams that you're kind of with in the same area, Purdue is sneaking back up to a 2 seed-ish talk. You beat them. Kansas is there. You beat them. And you split with them. You lost them as well. Houston's right there. You beat them. It's just those same teams. St. John's is starting to creep back up into that 2-3 seed talk. You beat them. There's just teams out there that are around your same area that you beat them all. And that's a very good position to be in. If somehow you could, win at Arizona, would be very, very tough. I don't expect them to next Monday. I really don't. But if you could do that, there's not a team that's around you that you have played that you didn't beat at least once. Now, you could very easily go play Arizona again in the Big 12 championship and lose, and that's okay. But you have that win against them, and that's really going to help you.
Yeah, Iowa State's got a ton of big time wins. Houston, Kansas, they've beaten Purdue, St. John's, and a lot of other schools. So they've got just about as good a resume as anybody. And as you mentioned, obviously got to win tonight, win your 2 other home games versus Tech and Arizona, and then of course, or against Arizona State at home, I should say. That at Arizona is going to be really, really tough. Arizona's playing great right now. But if you could, if you could finish out 4-0 here in the regular season, as you mentioned, that may just lock you up a number 1 seed, because you would obviously have a win at number 2 Arizona, which would be be massive for Iowa State. But is there any chance that they could probably get back up to rank number 1 before the?
Well, I mean, obviously, if you go 4-0, I don't know what Duke has left. I think it'd be very hard to pass Duke. Now, obviously, I think Duke has Carolina again, so I mean they could lose again to them. I don't see how you could get to truly rank number 1, but I think you could get to 2 if you finish out undefeated. And Michigan will lose a game. It just takes somebody to lose. I mean, you're not going to jump. I don't think you're going to jump Duke. Or I think Michigan is 3. I'm not even 100% sure who is 3, but I think it's Michigan, because 1 is Michigan, or 1 is Duke, 2 is Arizona, and 3 is Michigan, I believe.
Yeah, I've got Duke's schedule pulled up. They got to play 11 Virginia. At NC State, and then of course they end with the final game versus North Carolina. So, yeah, Duke, obviously it's going to. We'll see what happens with their final 3 games. Obviously, you would need them to slip up with one of those.
Yeah, I don't see them losing. They've already lost to Carolina. I don't see them getting swept by Carolina at all. They're too good, and Carolina's a decent team, but they're not Carolina. They're not number 5 Carolina. They're I think they're about top 25 Carolina.
Yeah, it looks like Duke's probably going to hold on to that one spot. And then, of course, you got the Michigan, Arizona, Iowa State, and then a few other teams. But
Yep.
no, it's like you mentioned, though, the difference between the 1 and 2 seeds, it is a big deal. But the good thing for Iowa State is it does look like, kind of a worst case scenario. They should still stay at a 2, though.
Right. And I believe, just the way it's working out, I think, things could still go haywire a little bit. I don't see how they're not playing in St. Louis those first 2 weekends or first 2 days as the 1 or the 2 seed. Now, the interesting part will be what they do with Michigan. If Michigan runs the table or Iowa State runs the table, and let's say Iowa State gets the 1 seed, do they get the Midwest 1 seed? Because then it would be St. Louis, Chicago, which would be phenomenal. But Michigan's going to have something to say about that, and they should. The next closest one is Houston. That's not god awful, and I do think that would probably be if Michigan's a 1, Duke's a 1 in the East, and then I do think Arizona's a 1. I really do. So they're going to go out west. So I think it's Houston or Chicago. But if you're the 2 and then you are in the Midwest and you have to play Michigan in the Elite 8 to go to the Final Four, I like that opportunity. Michigan's really good. I don't like playing Michigan, but if I'm going to do it, playing it in Chicago is as good as it can be. You're going to have tons and tons of fans there, and so will Michigan. But, yeah, Iowa State, if they take care of business here, St. Louis, Chicago, Indianapolis, it doesn't get any better than that. You don't have to get on a plane to go anywhere to watch Iowa State, per se win a national championship.
Well, we're from the Midwest. We don't have to get on a plane no matter what.
Well, yeah, that is true. Yeah, I do too. I'd just soon drive anywhere. I completely agree with that. But just the reality is, driving to Houston. Now it does work out where, especially if you're playing Thursday, unless you're leaving Wednesday, you need a flight, Thursday morning, getting out of Des Moines to Houston, which you can do very easily and get to the game that night. But driving to Houston's a full day. You're not solo driving here straight to Houston, I don't think, safely.
Yeah, that'd be a tough one. I've got Lenardi's bracketology pulled up, and he does right now. He's got Michigan as the 1 seed in the Midwest, and then Iowa State as the 2, which is no surprise, as you mentioned.
No.
But that's, even if Iowa State doesn't get the 1 seed, if they do end up at 2, obviously you want to be in the Midwest because that's about as much advantage as you're going to get for the home crowd to be able to travel.
Yeah, and Iowa State fans will travel wherever. If somehow Arizona stumbles here and Iowa State gets shipped out west, they'll still play those first games in St. Louis. I truly believe that. But then I think it's San Diego. Iowa State fans will just get on a plane and go to San Diego. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, it looks like, San Diego and then San Jose, I think.
Okay, San Jose is the Sweet 16.
Yeah, so San Diego will be the opening round.
Okay,
that's where they have Arizona right now, of course. Yep. But then once it gets down, then it would be San Jose.
It's San Jose. Okay, so then you get on a plane and go to San Jose. So go to Northern California.
There you go. No, but it should be a good finish here for Iowa State. I know looks like, what are they up by 10 right now?
Yeah, I've got it 50-40. Looks like Iowa State has the ball. I think maybe they just turned it over. So yeah, so they're up 10. What was that? 14 minutes left. I've got it on my phone here.
Yeah, that's what I got. So you gotta take care of business against a 17 team tonight, and then you finish out the other games you should win, especially if Texas Tech with the injury, and you see what happens at Arizona.
Yeah, and that's all you can ask for and that's what the Big 12 wants too. It might be for I need to look at the standings for sure, but it might be for a Big 12 championship regular season, which Iowa State has not done, I believe, since 2000 or 2001. So it's been a long time for that. So, yeah. And that's a big deal. You ask Iowa State fans, would you rather have a Big 12 regular season title, a Big 12 tournament title, or a Final Four? every day and twice on Sunday, you're going to take the Final Four. But I would take the Big 12 championship regular season over the Big 12 tournament title. It'd be okay. It's okay to lose in the semifinals if you won the regular season. And you lose to Arizona, they're ranked number 4, and you're number 2 at that time. That's not going to hurt you. I think in that situation, especially if it's a close game. Well, a couple years ago, Houston still, I think, was a 1 seed, and Iowa State beat them by 35 in the Big 12 title game. So those, as long as you get to the semis or finals in your conference tournament, I don't think it really hurts or really helps you. I think it's kind of set.
Yeah, and Arizona, they're playing Baylor right now. Looks like they're up by 2. It looks like Arizona's only got 2 losses in the Big 12. Everybody else has 4, so you would need Arizona to step up. It's here at some point, and then also beat them to get that regular season Big 12 title that you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's going to be a tall task. You need them, and I don't know their schedule offhand. And Houston's lost 3 in a row. Houston could win the national championship, and it wouldn't shock me one bit. They lost 3 in a row, but they lost at Iowa State on Big Monday, one of the toughest places to play in the country. Then they were at home to number 2 Arizona. Okay, they got beat. And then they lost to Mr. Automatic 41-0, Bill Self at Fog Allen on Big Monday. So, yes, they've lost 3 in a row, but they've lost to 3 of the best teams in the country at 2 of the hardest places to play in the country.
Yeah, that's a hell of a 3-game stretch that they've had. So they're going to be battle tested going into March Madness.
Yeah, Milan just hit another 3. They're up 13 now. So just got to keep playing good basketball, and it should work out for you. Utah's just not very good, really. I am impressed. There's one of their guys that is super athletic. He hit a couple threes. He got to the rim a couple times. And that's the one thing, and I believe we talked about this before. This is what BYU has. They have the dude, you give him the ball and you say, go play. Iowa State does not have that. That is the one deficiency they have. And I know I've said this before. They are a great team. If you put all 5 of them out there, there's no group of 5 better in the country. I truly believe that. But they don't have, Lipsey's great, point guard, does everything, but it's not like he's just going to go do whatever. That's one, he's only 6'1", and that's really tough to do. And 2, that's just not how he plays. That's not what's expected of him. Debansa, Peterson from Kansas, excuse me, Duke has Boozer. It's just some of those guys just, you give them the ball and you go, and everybody else get out of the way. Iowa State's not that way. They got to play well together. They got to share the ball. And when they lose games, the ball gets stuck and they turn it over too much because they do need to share the ball, and it can't just stick with one guy and him go make a play. So as long as the ball is moving and they limit their turnovers, which you say that about every team, you limit turnovers. That's very broad and general basketball. The team that turns it over less is usually going to win the basketball game. But that's the one thing that worries me going into the tournament is running into a guy, because you think like BYU right now is going to probably a 3 or 4 seed. So you're going to play a team like that in the Sweet 16 game. And a guy like the kid from Kansas, the Wagler that scored 45, a couple weeks ago, that scares me a little bit.
Yeah, for Iowa State, like as you mentioned, just going to have to play as a team. And also for Iowa State, you hope one of your guys in any given game can get hot and maybe go for 25 or 30. Maybe you can't do it, 3 out of 4 games like some of these individuals can. Peterson for Kansas. I know he's had some injuries, or there's some drama going on with him at Kansas. I don't know the full story on that, but it sounds like he's playing half a game and then sitting out half.
Yeah, it's essentially he's doing load management. I truly believe that. It's just what he's doing. But last night I watched the game against Houston, and he played, I would say, full minutes. He sat for a few minutes here and there, just like everybody else does for the most part. I would guess he played 32 to 35 minutes, and he was good. He wasn't great. He He wasn't their leading scorer, but he's good. I mean, he's very, very good, and he's not shy. He's a guy that he can get his shot at any time, and he will take the shot at any time. And that's the reason he's the projected number one pick, and he still is, even with all this load management stuff, because he's special.
Yeah, he definitely is. Everybody's talking about him and Boozer and a couple others that are coming up in this draft. It should be they're talking about it being a really, really strong NBA draft for domestic players, especially, which we haven't seen in a little while.
Well, yeah. And then you got the kid from what's the number one pick from last year? Cooper Flagg should be in this class. He reclassified, so it should have been an even better class. And that's why all the NBA teams are tanking. And that's a whole different argument that we haven't even touched on, that teams are getting fined now for tanking. And we don't watch the NBA, and we'll turn it on in May and June when it gets to the time when they actually play basketball. But the NBA is crazy right now.
Yeah, I don't fully understand the NBA as far as their salary cap and stuff, but the people that I listen to, kind of as background noise when the NBA topics come on, they say it's really tough, other than tanking, to get better nowadays with the contracts and the different tiers that they have. The NBA's made it really tough to get better, just besides tanking and getting a high draft pick. So people have a lot of different theories on how to fix that. Maybe the bottom teams, they all get the same number of ping pong balls. That way nobody has an advantage. There's some other ideas out there, but that's probably a topic for a little bit later in the year once the playoffs get closer, and maybe we can do a little research on that. But NBA is a different animal.
Yeah, it's just and that's just something here in Iowa. And I know you've got an NBA team out there in Colorado, but the NBA is not that popular in Iowa, and I don't know why that is. It was like when I was growing up in the '90s, everybody loved the Chicago Bulls. I mean, it was close. They were on WGN. It's just like the Cubs and the Braves. The Bulls were on every night on WGN. Johnny Red Kerr was the announcer. I mean, it was, and those things just don't happen anymore. And I don't know the reasons. And it's all about, the answer to every question is money. And the Bulls aren't very good. I think that's some of it. But Kansas City doesn't have a team. St. Louis doesn't have a team. It's Chicago, it's Milwaukee, and it's Minneapolis. And the Timberwolves aren't that old. I remember when the Timberwolves became a team in the late 90s, I think. So it wasn't like growing up, I couldn't even be a Timberwolves fan because there wasn't an option. So I think you did really only have the Bulls and the Bucks. That's why you see a lot of Lakers fans and a lot of Celtic fans, just because there weren't a lot of teams around here.
Yeah, the Bulls were, that was much watched TV back then, especially of Jordan. That was as good as it got in the 90s. And then, speaking about West, I'm going to Los Angeles next week, and the one thing I'll say about LA is it's a Dodgers town and a Lakers town.
Yep.
And it's not that, it's got a college feel to it. When you go out, when baseball season's going, you go to a Buffalo Wild Wings or any sports bar out there, the places are packed. Everybody's got Dodgers gear on, and every single TV is on the Dodgers. It's like going to Iowa City or Ames, except times 1,000. You walk down the sidewalk, every third person you see has got Dodger gear on, or
right.
Lakers gear. Those are the two popular. Football is way behind both of those.
Right. And some of that is just they haven't had a football team full time. Now they have two, but there was many years, people my age, they didn't have football in LA, which is crazy, being the second biggest city second or third biggest city in America. They didn't have football. It was the Oakland Raiders, and it was the LA Raiders, and it was back to Oakland. Now it's in Vegas. It was the St. Louis Rams. Now it's the LA Rams. It was the LA Rams before. They just can't keep teams. I think they will now. I think Kroenke, and they built that stadium that's just unbelievable out there. But yeah, I would love to go to a Dodgers game at Chavez Ravine. I think going to LA is not really on my bucket list, but going to a Dodgers game would be really, really fun.
I'd love to go to one too, but the one thing I've heard though,
yeah, it's awful.
The traffic is awful, and also there's no tailgating allowed.
Not allowed, or just not
allowed? Like, from what I've heard from customers, if you try tailgating, you can maybe get away with it for 10 or 15 minutes, and then they'll come tell you to pack it up, either get in the stadium or leave. So I don't. That's a weird California rule or something.
So even like standing and having beers, like I understand maybe not grilling and stuff like that, but even just standing around having beers with your buddies.
I'd have to ask around, but I believe once you get out of your car and park, they want you getting in the stadium, and once
Well, they
you're
want.
out,
I
get
mean,
your car and
they
leave.
want you buying their beer. I mean, I understand that.
Yeah, that's so. I'd have to go to a game to fully figure all that out and kind of report back on it. But yeah, it's kind of funny because LA is it's a big time Dodger town, and it obviously it helps that they're back-to-back title winners. But
well, yeah, now everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. But I truly do agree that even 10 years ago, it would have been this almost the same thing on a Buffalo Wild Wings to watch the Dodgers. It's always been a Dodger town. I mean, it's amazing just the people around here that wear Dodger stuff.
Yeah, Dodgers, Lakers, Notre Dame, there's Yankees. There's those 3 or 4 teams in every sport that you'll see Midwesterners walking around with the gear on.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Iowa, and let's just talk the Iowa State women. They had a nice lead going into the fourth quarter, and maybe even a few minutes into the fourth quarter against TCU, is ranked number 12, and had won like 41 games in a row at TCU or at their home court. And then Iowa State blew it. And I'll be honest, I didn't watch the game, so I don't know what really happened. But not that it really changes the outcome, but that would have been a real nice win for Bill Finley and the squad to get that. And then Iowa women with a great win against Michigan on Sunday. Michigan was, I believe, ranked number 6. And then a real tough loss for the Hawkeyes at Wisconsin that, again, they're the talk of lack of defense coming back in a little bit, and fair or unfair, they were so good on defense against Nebraska, and then it kind of went back to the wayside again against Nebraska, or against Wisconsin. They need to win the games they're supposed to win. They've got a couple tough ones coming up. They got at Nebraska and then Michigan at home, but you got to win the others, which I think are Ohio State and Penn State.
Yeah, for the Iowa men, we'll start with the JV team first, which is the Iowa men. They've lost 3 of 4. That was a really good win versus Nebraska. Obviously, Wisconsin's going to be tough. That would have been a really nice one to pull out. But, yeah, they've lost 3 of 4. Their next 2 are versus Ohio State and at Penn State. You got to win both of those because, obviously, your last 2 games of the year versus Michigan and at Nebraska. So you got to win these next 2 for sure. Bennett Sturts is doing all he can. Some other players got to step up, but that one in Wisconsin, that would have been really nice to get back-to-back rank wins. They just weren't able to get it done.
Yeah, it just comes Bennett. You're getting out of Bennett Sturts. He's going to get 25 to 30 a night. He's going to lead your team in most categories. You got to have a few guys step up and help out because Michigan's one of the best teams in the country. They could win the national championship very, very easily. And then walking into Nebraska, you are walking into a buzzsaw. After what happened, rushing the court on them a week ago, the Fred Hoiberg incident with the phone, that place is going to be absolutely insane, and they are going to be relentless against the Hawkeyes. It's going to be very, very difficult to win that game.
You can guarantee that's going to be a tough one. So if Iowa can win the next 2, that'd get them to 21. And then if you just kind of pencil in, maybe they lose the last 2, that'd put them at 21 and 10. And I know they're still, looking at the bracketology, they're still right now a 9 seed.
Yeah, 8-9 game. And
8-9 game, and then they would play Duke. So that's that's going to be really tough to.
Yeah, it's one game, and then we'll see you later. And that stinks. It's kind of like we've talked, guys I work with in high school basketball and stuff. It's, the Atomo girls, they ended up losing Indianola on Saturday night. But if they would have won that game and they went and played Johnston, who's won like 60 games in a row, ranked number 10 in the country, they would have went and got beat by 40. And I think I did see that Indianola got beat by 40 tonight against them. So it was like, go win that game. And then it's just, there's levels to this stuff. And it would have been a very, very difficult night tonight at Johnston. But you want to get there. And in a one-game situation, those levels aren't as different as, a high level girls basketball team in high school versus a middle level high school basketball team. But yeah, you don't want to see Duke early in the tournament, just like Iowa State doesn't want to see those teams either. You want to play them in the Elite Eight. You don't want to see a Duke until the Elite Eight or Final Four.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up. I think an 8 seed has defeated the number 1 seed 16 times, according to a quick Google search. So it can happen, of course, but it's going to be unlikely. You're going to need Sturts to go for like 35, and then someone else step up.
Well, yeah, and I know one of them was, I think Kentucky beat Wichita State in a game like that, and I believe North Carolina one year where they made the Final Four, maybe even won it as an 8 seed, did it as well. I can't remember who they beat as the one. I think that's when Bill Guthridge, it was right after Dean Smith retired. I think they made the Final Four as an 8 seed, which doesn't happen very often. It's just, and we've talked about this. You want to be the 2. You want to be, for Iowa, you want to be the 7 or the 10, and you want to play the 2. You don't want to play. Now the 2 seed is going to be a team like Iowa State or Houston, which isn't good either, but probably better than Duke.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe if Iowa can go 2-2 down the stretch, maybe that'd be a good thing, and then they fall down to that 10 seed that we've talked about. Maybe get a slightly easier draw, not by much, but slightly.
You don't want to get this close to not making the tournament, but almost getting that 11 seed, playing in that play-in game, win that, and then you go play the 6 seed. You win that one, then you play the 3 seed. That's like the best draw. The 3-6 is where it's at if you want to upset, I think.
Yeah, on paper that's the way to go, but like you said, then you're flirting with not even making it. So that's a fine line you're walking there. Speaking of March Madness, I know we didn't have this written down or anything, but I assume, are you going to do a bracket, or some people are going to maybe do some?
Yeah, we'll try to do, I think, kind of that same thing we've done with college football. I think that same, was it pools by round or whatever? We'll try that again. I think they have that. I need to talk to Cassins. We talked about doing something at the Elks as well. It's a little bit harder with the basketball because it's 64 games. So, if you do $1 a loss, you start with $1, it gets pretty expensive when you keep going up like you do in the football. So or maybe you start at 50 cents for the first round. But we'll get some things together. We always find opportunities to gamble when we can, Trev. You know that.
Yeah, no, we'll get something. We'll get something figured out. And before, I know we were kind of quick on the Iowa men, but let's touch real quick on the varsity Iowa team with the women.
The number one thing out of that game was 50 straight sellouts for the Hawkeye women, and then the other thing is, this is Jan Jensen's team now. It is no longer Lisa Bluter's program. It is Jan Jensen's program. They play differently. They play much better defense now than they did under Lisa Bluter. And Jan Jensen, and I'm sure she still works with them, probably not as much as she did just because of being a head coach. You just don't. But she's got another fabulous post player in Ava Hayden.
Yeah, Ava Hayden's dominating. She's one of the best players in the country. It's 4 straight wins now for Iowa after that little 3-game losing stretch that they had. The worst one was against Minnesota, but you're right, a much better team defensively. And with that win, Iowa now has moved up to a number 2 seed in the women's bracketology. Yes. So it's going to be, even if they win out and win the Big Ten, I don't think they can get a number 1. No. But the good thing about having a 2 seed,
you stay away from those big dogs.
And the win versus Michigan is it basically guarantees that no matter what, they're going to be one of the top 4 seeds come tournament time, which means the first 2 games will be played at Carver Hawkeye, that's the most important thing in those opening rounds.
Yeah, and then if you're a 2 seed now, if you do drop, you go to a 3. Again, you stay away from UConn, South Carolina, UCLA. You don't want to play those teams any sooner than you have to. You're going to have to play one of them to get to the Final Four, and that's fine. You get to the Elite Eight, you have to play a good team, and that's just the way it is. But it's a one-game setting. You've been winning games. They've been winning games, and the chips fall where they may. But you get to that 4 seed, and you play them in that Sweet 16 game. That's just tough draw.
No, it definitely is. And this team's got a good little mixture of, you've got some veterans with Stolke and Kylie Fierbach and McCabe that played in a lot of tournament games. You've got Ava Hayden and Strimlow, who played in the tournament last year. Now we've got some new young players coming in. Chit Chat's a sophomore. I don't know if she played in the tournament last year, not at Georgia Tech, but just looking forward a little bit. I mean, next year's starting five is we're going to have Chit Chat at point, Ava Hayden down low, and then really you'll probably have Strimlow, Journey Houston, and Addie Deal rounded out the other three with Hayes coming off the bench for Ava Hayden when she gets tired, and then we'll see what happens with a couple other players. Emily Rodriguez has kind of been off the team. I don't know exactly what's on there.
I would expect she's not. Here's how this works. They're saying it's an injury. She's redshirting and she is transferring. That's my call.
More than likely. That's more than likely what's going to happen. But they've got some really good recruits coming in.
Yeah, they've got a 5-star girl out of California coming in. Her name's kind of hard to say. I think it's Polish or whatever. But, Jen Jensen's doing a great job. And I think they had one of the top recruits in the country there this weekend, I believe. So I don't know if, now you're starting to talk. It might not be for this year. It might be for the next year. Iowa women is still, that's probably Iowa State's best win of the year still. And that's going to help Iowa State. So as an Iowa State fan, we want Iowa to just keep winning as well.
And hopefully they can. They've got Illinois coming up Thursday night at home. Illinois is a decent team, but they should beat them. And then they end at Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's
I don't think
bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, I don't think Wisconsin's very good
with the women's side going. So right now Iowa women projected a number 2 seed. If they can win these next 2 games in the regular season, and then they'll probably, I forget how the Big Ten tournament works. I think they'll get a double bye. I think in the women's bracket. Yeah. I'd have to double check that, but if they can at least win 1 game, maybe 2 in the Big Ten tournament, they have a good chance of holding on to a number 2 seed. At worst, dropping down to a 3 maybe.
Right, and that's what you want. You just want to play. You're playing meaningful basketball late February, early March. Games that matter. Games you need to win. And Iowa State, just watching Iowa State, they're just over 5 minutes left. They're up 15, so it's going according to plan right now. Still 5 minutes left, but yeah, you win the games you're supposed to win, and then you take your chances against the others, and that's why we all love college basketball. And there will be upsets coming up, and we just hope it's not our teams, because we've all had, Caitlin Clark's sophomore year, they got upset by Creighton at home. We've all had Iowa as a 3 seed, Northwestern State hit a shot to win. Iowa State has a Hampton situation and a UAB situation, and others. Even last year, the Ole Miss situation. Just you're a 3 seed, you should get to at least Sweet 16, and just doesn't always happen. But we talked about this last week, I believe. But excuse me, Iowa State needs to get the Elite Eight. That's really what this team needs to get to, and then the chips fall where they may, but they need to get to the Elite Eight this year. So Iowa State really needs to buckle down and get there. And then whether you're the 1 seed or the 2 seed, you're playing a really good team, and you want 5 minutes left in the game, and it's right there, and get to that Final Four opportunity.
Yep, for both Iowa and Iowa State, March Madness, we love the upsets, the game-winning shots. You just hope your team isn't on the losing end of any of them.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they still show the Hampton highlight every year, and unfortunately, Drake has that too. The Western Kentucky kid hitting that long 3-pointer to beat them when they were the 5. It's probably been 10 years ago now, or maybe even longer than that. That you and I did it to Kansas. That's one of the highlights. So it happens, and we'd still love it. I know it stinks to have last second shots beat you or whatever, but it is why basketball is great. Way more upsets, and it's a 1-game setting. You play. Iowa State plays. These Ole Miss last year, if they're healthy and they play them 10 times, they don't lose very many times. But Iowa State wasn't healthy, and it's a 1-game setting, and Ole Miss took it to them. I was there. So you never know, and some teams just catch fire. They're not playing great, but most teams have 4 games left, and you win 4 in a row, and you win the tournament, and there's 3 more or 4 more, and there's 8 in a row, and all of a sudden now you get 2 more. You won 10 in a row. You're on fire, and who knows what happens, but you're a 6 seed, something like that. And or you get a St. Peter's. It's a 15 seed that makes the Elite Eight or whatever they did, or I think they did make the Elite Eight, didn't they?
I think it would have been close to the Elite Eight at least.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy, but that's why we love it, and that's why we love sport. I mean, it's not just basketball. It's you, especially today. And we talked about the reason earlier is we can watch shows or TV programs whenever. You don't have to watch them at the time. They're not on at 7:00 on Wednesday. I mean, they are, but you can find them. It's streamed the next day. It's whatever. It's why all these, NBC has just staked all their money into live sports. They did the Olympics. They have baseball. They have football. They're doing basketball now. I mean, it's crazy the amount of money that NBC is putting into live sports because that's the one thing that everybody watches.
Sports and politics; those are two things that still work on TV. So yeah, NBC's had a really good.
Do you have the State of the Union on? It's on. It's on now. It's probably over now, but it was on at 8:00 as well. I didn't watch 1 second of it. I turned on the Cyclones.
Yeah, no, I don't need to watch any of that nonsense.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter what side you're on. It's all nonsense.
I get my.
I can tell you what's going to happen is the president is a Republican, so when he says something they like, they'll cheer, and the other side will boo. And then in 4 years, if the president is a Democrat, it's just going to be the opposite. I mean, it doesn't matter who it is at all. It's just it's unfortunately it's a sad state of affairs. We all need to just do better and work with each other, and you don't have to go in a silo. The older I get, I'm getting old, Trev. Which, speaking of that, how about the hockey being truly 46 years to the day that the Miracle on Ice happened, which is crazy because I'm 46 years old. I was 2 months old. I was born December 20th, and then this was February. So I was 2 months and 2 days old when the Miracle on Ice happened. I know you weren't even born yet, Trev, by long ways.
No, not quite. But hopefully, if it happens 46 years again from now, hopefully you're still around and then we're really old.
We're probably not doing this, and I'll be just lucky to be alive, I think.
That's right.
No, but anything else you want to talk about, Trev? We're right about an hour. NFL. Let's talk NFL just real short here. Give you the floor for the NFL. I know there has been some news and notes on a few things here or there.
Yeah, a few updates. Obviously, Kirk Cousins is going to be released.
Yep.
Kyle Pitts is going to get tagged. Breece Hall is going to get tagged. So there's a few updates as far as players go. Brandon Aubrey, the best kicker in the league, arguably, for the Cowboys. He wants $10 million a year. Looks like they were offering him 7.5. So we could potentially see a kicker hold out. I don't know how often that's ever happened, but that could be in play. And another thing that's going on, and we'll kind of end with just one or two topics of NFL here, but the international games are becoming more and more popular, and you hear fans saying all the time, "Why are they doing this? It's dumb. Doesn't make any sense." Well, here's a number for you.
Yeah.
The Super Bowl got 125 million people watching it. And the night before the Super Bowl or the next day, Liverpool played Man City in a soccer match. It got 750 million people watching it. That's why the NFL is going international. And what's going to happen here is, I don't know how soon, but eventually every team in the NFL will play one game outside the United States.
Yep.
All 32 teams will.
I agree. And they're going to go all over. I believe next year they're going to Australia for the first time, right?
That potentially could be the opening game of the year. Could be on a Wednesday. Rams. 49ers.
Okay, and I like that actually, because traveling to Australia is different than going to Europe. I know from here, my parents went to Australia several years ago. It takes a full day to get there. Now they would fly charter, and it'd be a little different, but I don't know if you can take a plane from California straight to Australia. I think you have to land in Hawaii or Guam or somewhere out there to fill up.
Yeah, it's a long ass trip, that's for sure. And if the NFL keeps the 17-game format that they have now, what'll happen is everybody will get 8 home, 8 away. There's 16, and then you have one international or game outside the United States, so that's your 17. What people probably haven't thought about yet, but I think it's on the board maybe 5 or 10 years down the road, they probably are going to go to an 18-game schedule.
Yep.
But with this 18-game schedule, we could eventually get to a point where every team plays 2 international games every year. So 8 home, 8 away, 2 games outside the United States, which that's going to make fans even more mad. But again, Super Bowl 125 million, Liverpool versus Man City 750 million. Football owns a domestic market. There's still a lot of ground to make up outside the United States.
Yeah, because so they played in Europe. They play in Germany. They play in London. Have they played in Ireland? I know the college goes to Ireland, but has the NFL played in Ireland or not?
I don't know if they have. I'd have to look if they've gone to Ireland yet or not.
But the next places to go are probably, I mean, it's just the reality. China and Japan are a couple, and those are, again, it's hard to get there. It's you can't play on a Sunday and you can't play the next day or the next week. You have to have a week off just because it takes so long to get there and back. That's just the reality of it. Now, because New York flying to Spain is only like 6 hours. That's only a couple hours farther than it is to go to LA. And then also, do you think they would go to? Would they go play? Would they play in Canada? And I know they played in Mexico. Or are they going to? And I know they played in Brazil. Are they looking at Africa at all?
Africa, I haven't heard anything about that. Obviously, Canada, you got Vancouver.
Yep.
That might be somewhere.
Toronto would be another one.
Toronto, just north of.
It's right by Buffalo. Buffalo could host that, and it'd be. I think actually, didn't Buffalo play in Toronto a time or two last 5 or 10 years?
They might have. So those are 2 places. Obviously, Mexico right now is going to be probably off.
Yeah, I think Mexico's out for a while.
Yeah, Mexico's going to be off. But yeah, these international games are just going to keep. It's going to keep expanding. So if you don't like them, just wait a year or 2 because there's going to be more of them.
Yeah, and then, do you think in 10 years there'll be a team in Europe?
Yeah, I mean we've talked about that before. Mm-hmm. We got new listeners, but yeah, I think at some point there will be a team in Europe, and the travel from the East Coast to Europe is not really that far. And what the NFL is going to have to do, obviously, there's different laws and taxes, so that's going to create some hurdles, but nothing that's going to be impossible. If you get an Eli Manning that says I'm not going to go play in Europe if they have the number 1 pick, type of deal, that'll happen. But most everybody else is going to have to go play there. The NFL could do something where they build a facility for the team in Europe.
Yeah.
Practice field and living quarters. And then what they also would need to do is they need to build a facility and living quarters on the East Coast somewhere for the team. And you'd have to go at least probably 3 weeks in Europe, 3 weeks in the States, and just kind of rotate like that because you can't go every other week back and forth.
Right. Yeah. You'd almost have to have an American headquarters. And that could be a place, not that you'd want it here, but somewhere like Des Moines that doesn't have an NFL team, but you could build their facilities and you would build fans there. I'm just thinking, like almost like, coach, those fans are Boston fans. So but I'm just trying to think somewhere. Well, the East Coast has a lot of teams. I was thinking, Carolina. Well, they do have Carolina now, and like Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire. They're all Boston fans. So I mean, maybe it would be somewhere like, Des Moines, somewhere like Nashville's got a team now too, and I'm just trying to think of places that don't have a team that could, support the facilities and have enough to do, and you think you put that in Des Moines, people go watch practice and stuff, and make it a Green Bay light.
Yeah, I mean, geographically, of course, the East Coast would work better, but as you mentioned, most of the areas have professional football teams, so those are kind of taken up. Omaha would be
Omaha would be a good one too. Yeah, I mean that'd be fine.
Maybe go back to St. Louis. They've got the dome there already.
Yeah, and just somewhere that doesn't have football that could, you could get a fan base immediately if you put it there without having the games there. Obviously St. Louis could have games there, but Des Moines doesn't have a field that could do it. But Omaha the same way. I think Des Moines and Omaha would be really good.
Yeah, and they could move some stuff around, but yeah, back to your original question. Yeah, at some point, I think there is going to be an NFL team in Europe or somewhere outside the United States, and 15, 20 years from now, multiple teams outside the United States.
Yeah, I would say Mexico is going to have a team sometime. I mean, I understand what's going on there right now is craziness, but I do believe there'll be a team in Mexico as well, which that makes 100% sense. I wouldn't shock me if there's a team in Canada too. I mean, Toronto, Vancouver, they could have a team tomorrow. If you expanded and said you want to go to Canada, there's plenty of businesses and the facilities, and those two cities could host a team tomorrow. Mexico City could as well. I mean, I truly believe that.
Yeah, maybe an NFL team in Canada could win a Super Bowl before a Canadian team wins the Stanley Cup.
And I know he doesn't listen to this, and he shouldn't, but Ken Miller out of Des Moines, that does one of the talk shows, he's a Canadian, and it's just every time they talk about them not winning the Stanley Cup, and he makes fun of, the last few have been Florida and Tampa. He goes, what are those teams even having hockey for? What are those cities even having hockey for? But yeah, it's a sore subject for him. But I do like him and Trent Condon, who I believe went to school with Brett and Zach up at UNI. They do a pretty good show. I like listening to them. And the Cyclones are going to win tonight. They're 75-59 with less than a minute to go. So they did exactly what they needed to do. Got out of Utah with 1-1, the correct one. And Saturday will be a big game against Texas Tech, which that game would have been huge if JT Toppin was still playing. But it's pretty huge. You just need to win that game.
Nope, exactly. And I think that's a good way to probably end this podcast tonight. As you mentioned, Iowa State just finished up with a 75-59 win. And like you mentioned, 1-1 in Utah, and get ready for that Texas Tech game.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Trev. We'll talk next week.
All righty. Sounds good. Have a good one.